Okay, so welcome everyone to our next installment of our Automation Hour webinar series. This is, I believe, the sixth installation. So our format for those who are new joining us is we meet on Fridays 3 to 4 p.m. Eastern, and going into the month of December, we're going to go back to our every other Friday schedule. So for our December webinars, we have MVP Mike Gill and Megan Broadley on the 9th and the 16th. And for those who have submitted ideas for a future presentation, we will be reaching out next month to get additional presenters slotted for January and beyond. And for those out there who do have a cool process automation use case, whether it's a beginner, intermediate, advanced, please feel free to share that with us, and you can go to our website and submit that request. So all lines are muted. If you have a question throughout the entire webinar, do post your questions here as well as the success community. We are recording the session and we'll be posting the recording as well as the material afterwards on our website, on the success community. We'll also tweet it out as well. So our resources here, we do have a success community, Salesforce Automation Hour. So if you're not a follower there, I suggest you go out there. And we also have a website as well. And we want to thank our sponsor, Concrete.io, for sponsoring this whole entire webinar series. And here are your co-hosts, Rakesh, myself, and David. So with that, we have our third set of presenters, and we actually have a tag team today. So we have MVP Melissa VanDyke and Taylor Grimes from Gear CRM, who will be doing the presentation for us. So let me hand off control to Taylor. And she can take it from there. Melissa.
Hello, everyone.
Hi, hello. So my name is Melissa VanDyke. I'm a solutions architect at Gear CRM and Salesforce MVP since February, which has been fabulous. My blog is melissavandyke.com, where I love to blog about project management. You can go get a free project management template by signing up for the blog, and you'll get an email there. You can also find us on the Success community at success.salesforce.com in the Admin to Admin Academy. So definitely join the fun on the Success community if you're not already there. We'd love to see you. And my little picture with the Cubs, go Cubs. For those of you who don't know, I live in Chicago, so I'm super stoked about the Cubs winning. So, and then Taylor, go ahead.
All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Taylor Grimes. I am a senior consultant at Gear CRM. I work with Melissa daily. She's awesome. I also am from Omaha, Nebraska. I run the Nebraska Women in Tech user group, and I'm an avid lover of Salesforce process mapping, tracking lead to revenue, and maximizing user adoption.
Great. So there you have it. So there's the team. So basically how we set this up for today's demo really is going to be Taylor driving the demo portion. What we were looking to do, the use case that we were really trying to solve here is we hear all of the time that admins want automation, obviously, specifically use cases where you want to gather data from your customers who are not in Salesforce, basically through forms. Web forms where you can throw a link in an email and send that out to your list and have people fill out the form and have that data come back into Salesforce. So you're gathering information from your customers or from external people of some kind. So we're going to walk you through that. We're using quite a few tools, so be ready for a jam-packed session. We're using FormAssembly as our tool of choice for the form. We love FormAssembly because it is really affordable. So for you solo admins out there, or any admin out there who's looking for a tool like this, it's really affordable and it's super powerful, and you'll see that here. We're also using declarative rollup summary. We're using Process Builder, the Salesforce Process Builder. So yeah, so it's crazy, it's cool, it's really going to show you the power of automation in a really fun way because it's got Taylor's personality, so it can't help but be amazing and fun. So with that, Taylor, take us away.
Thank you, Melissa. Okay, so to get started, I'm going to tell you a bit about some of the automation that we're using today to power this webinar. And keep in mind, everything that I'm showing you today, I've linked to places where you can find this content online for free. So feel free to take notes, but we'll be providing you access to all of this information after the call today. So like Melissa was saying earlier, FormAssembly is really our main gear in this process. It's our web form collector. The awesome part about FormAssembly for our demo today is that we're using a custom web form that updates a custom object. And I love its ability. It's so flexible. It can create records in the CRM that it's connected to. It can do things like accept online payments. Whoa. It's HIPAA compliant. To me, that's a double whoa. And it can be used for things like job applications, surveys for your customers, and much more. So sky is the limit with FormAssembly and what you can do. What we'll be covering today truly only covers a small portion of what this tool does. So if you're interested in a web form application that's built with clicks and not code, I definitely recommend checking out FormAssembly. Next, this is just an added portion of fun. I'm referencing a blog here that was written by Doug Ayers last year with No Code November, and it's super popular, it's always going viral, and there's a reason. And I'm going to demonstrate how I use that just as an added bell and whistle for today's demonstration. So what I'll be using the related list filtering is to be able to separate my web forms that I'm going to demonstrate today based on their status. So a very common request. I have a bunch of records in a related list, group them by their status. Today, that might require Visualforce, unless you know this trick. So we'll take a look at what that looks like and how we built it. And then lastly, we're going to be showing you how we use the declarative rollup summary app, plus a Salesforce workflow. So if you ever have a custom object that you want to roll up a value or a text value even via a lookup field, which is not a master detail relationship, just a standard lookup field, there's a free app out there that can do that for you. So we'll demonstrate a use case with that today. Okay. So the live demo today, if you don't remember anything, you'll remember that we talked about Beyonce today. So for my demonstration, what I will be doing is I'll show you a Beyonce concert pre-order web form that goes into Salesforce and powers automation throughout the way. So without further ado, I'm going to switch screens and show you my process. So what I'm going to do, just to give everyone background, is I'm going to take you through the build. So I'm going to show you my form, I'm going to fill out the form, and as an end user, I'm going to go into Salesforce and show you what I see. Next, we'll break apart each portion of that automation, and we'll talk about how we used it to give you this full end-to-end demo. Okay, so starting with FormAssembly. Okay, so this is my web form, and keep in mind, just for the sake of the demonstration today, we kept it pretty simple. But you can definitely, if you have HTML skills, if you're fancy, you can really ramp these web forms out. and you can drag and drop them on any location on your website very, very easily. But this is the standalone form that's accessed via a URL. So it could be shared in an email or many, many use cases. So for this example, I'm filling out a web form to request corporate box office tickets. So I select my city, and I've got pick list options. I'm from Omaha, so I'm choosing Omaha. And I'll fill out a standard form information. Okay, so I hit submit. So I get a message that my form was submitted successfully. And now in the background, a couple things happen. First, if I worked for the client and I was in the CRM, I would get an email alert that a form was submitted. And that was powered through FormAssembly. A record will be created in Salesforce. So if I pop over to Salesforce, I see my leads tab. And I'm using Lightning for today's demo, but this is also something that you can do in Classic. So I'm going to click today's leads. And so now I see immediately that I have a lead status of an order inquiry hot assigned to myself that pulled information over from the form. You might be thinking, that's not that spectacular, but there's more. So now that I'm on my lead record, I instantly see the related records that were created in addition to this lead. Not only do I have a defined lead status that relates to the process that this lead came from, I have a web order record, I have a campaign record relating to the Beyonce tracking for the box office pre-order, and I can see the information on my web order form that was captured from FormAssembly. So all of my values, they came over into the system, are linked to a Salesforce campaign. Now let's take a look at the campaign. So now I have my campaign records. I have a campaign member from Dave from my recent submission, and I also can see in a really nice format those web orders based upon their status. So for marketing folks out there, this is a really easy way to visualize the impact of your campaign without having to fuss through a related list that's not sorted the way that you need. Okay, so let's talk about how we did this and what was behind some of the automation that we just looked at. So to start, we'll go into FormAssembly, which they have a really, really nice user interface that is constantly being enhanced. I won't even cover 10% of what you can do with FormAssembly. So if you're interested in this tool, go check it out, get a demo org. It can really do a lot. But for the sake of today's conversation, let's just focus on those 3 records that we created during this process. So first we have an enabler, an enabled connector for Salesforce. So you can connect your Salesforce instance to your FormAssembly builder. So for this form, the Salesforce integration, it's told to do 3 things. The first thing is it's told to create a lead record. And what I love as a Salesforce admin is we are told constantly learn this new app, check out this connector, and you feel like you can't ever win. You have to learn a new way every week, every update. The nice thing about FormAssembly is it's so straightforward, you will be able to pick this up instantly. The field mappings are exactly what they say they are. It gives you the availability to pick from a pick list value all of your Salesforce fields, easily add additional fields. You can even go so far as to refresh Salesforce and refresh the connector as you're building it out. So there's a lot of times you might be making a form and you realize, hey, I need a new field in Salesforce because I want to capture this info. if you're on a less advanced tool, that might mean starting over from scratch. With this tool, you just simply hit refresh, and it refreshes the schema behind the scenes and saves all of your changes. I'm going to keep telling you little things that I learned as I built this out. So next, the automation is creating that campaign record. And what I love about this, and I'm going to keep saying I love it because I love FormAssembly, the lead ID. I was able to reference the lead ID into an additional record. So it's sort of like chicken before the egg. Sometimes you're building things faster than you're able to architect, and you think, well, how can I relate the campaign if I haven't created the lead? You can easily reorder the automation even after you've built it all out. And I had to do that for this demonstration. So I was able to reference the lead from the above object for the order of operations, define a status with a formula, that was cool, and I was also able, with the formula, to hard code the ID of my Salesforce campaign that I built out, and also assign a value to the campaign member record for a custom field. So that is a really big feature, I think, of FormAssembly, is the ability to append marketing-related rich data to the campaign member. When it comes to reporting, this will be extremely helpful later on down the road if you can isolate customizations like this. Okay. Next, we've got the actual web order custom object that I created. And so you can see here that, again, I'm still referencing that ID. So you're able to be pretty flexible and dynamic in how you reference things. So if it was, let's say, maybe not a lead, but a contact, you'd be able to decipher that without creating a duplicate record. FormAssembly is strong enough of a tool and tight enough integration with Salesforce that it's already thought of all these loopholes that maybe other systems are giving you. And then this, as a Salesforce consultant, and probably a lot of admins out there who follow the Why Salesforce Admins Drink, marketing on a web form might look different than how your CRM data looks. So what makes FormAssembly awesome is the ability to have data that lives in a web form that doesn't have to map value for value in a pick list to your Salesforce data. So you don't have additional data in your CRM you have to clean. You can define it in your mapping. So for this example, if I had pick list values that are customer facing, I can still have those customer facing pick list values in my web form that my customers populate and understand. And I can map those pick list values to your operation values. So there doesn't have to be too much meeting of the minds of marketing and operations. You can continue speaking to your customers like you always speak to them and map your data effectively into the CRM. So you can see you can continue to add objects, and you can continue to reorder the objects if you have automation that has a certain order of operations to execute effectively. And then you can set up additional Salesforce email rules and options. And it's nice that it gives you the ability to prevent overwriting of data. So if your system has existing data that you don't want overwritten by a marketing process, you can define that. Okay, so that covers the FormAssembly portion. Now let's take a look at Doug Ayer's blog. So this is linked to my PowerPoint presentation, like I said earlier, but if you haven't found it, subscribe to this blog, it's awesome. Doug is super helpful, and he's always thinking of ways to bridge the gap between development and administration. And this is a really, really good example of a common use case that you see all the time. You'll probably think of 5 things just on this call that you could use this for to help assist the usability and adoption of Salesforce. So in Doug's example, he's filtering contacts based on an active flag. In my example, what I did was I looked at my web orders, and I grouped them based on the data within the form. So you can see the order status of processing. If I were to change this value to, let's say, inquiry, and we're backtracking in the process, upon save and change, I have a process builder process that's populating and unpopulating a lookup field. And that lookup field gives me the ability, you guys might have realized this through the processes, every time you create a lookup field in Salesforce, on your page layouts, you have a new related list option. So if you just keep bypassing the creation of a new field when you're creating a lookup, you can easily skip the step that says, what do you want to name this on your related list? That is the loophole we're using with the system to do our filtering. So I'm going to go to my campaign that's related to my web orders. And now you can see we've got 3 processing, we've got 6 in inquiry status. And this is all done by setting the value on a lookup of processing. When the status of the order is no longer processing and let's say a different value, we can continue to set that. So the process builder in the background looks something like this. And you can get as fancy as you'd like with these. Doug's got a really nice example and walkthrough in his blog that might be more applicable for different use cases. But this is just a demonstration showing when the value's set here, take this action, update a hidden field, remove your values when the values are no longer there, and so on and so forth. So if you had additional status values, your process builder process would just continue to tile out for every additional process. And another thing that I noticed in recent updates, and I've actually run into errors myself, just going too fast and missing something, but if you guys scroll all the way to the right, look at where in your process builders you're telling the automation to stop and when you're telling it to keep going. So if you have multiple action groups of subsequent logic that needs to continue to flow out, you can do that very effectively by knowing when it's appropriate to evaluate the next criteria. So you can see here, when I'm setting the value, when it meets the criteria for inquiry status, I'm telling it to stop the process. You don't need to evaluate the additional criteria. You can stop. But you'll notice when we're removing the value, we want 2 things to happen. That's 2 sets of automation based on 2 different criteria tiles on the left. That's where we're telling the process to keep going. So keep in mind of ways that you can use that more effectively in other processes. It's something that I have really started to take advantage of more and more. Every single release, this gets even better. I'm probably doing it a disservice to the release notes by not going further here, but take a look at this and see where you can, sort of streamline your additional process builders. Okay. Next, this is one of my favorite tricks and secret tools. And if you don't know about it, this is your lucky day. You might need to talk to your development team about ways that you can use this, but if you want to get brave in a dev org, I highly suggest playing around with it. The use case I used was on my lead record. So first I'll pull that back up so that we can take a look at that. So I'm going to go to Dave. I'm going to talk about the lead status here for a moment. So lead statuses and lead flows are really important if you're going to have an effective lead conversion process in your sales process. And it's important that marketing and sales is aligned on the values of these statuses. So you may have different status marks based on different types of activity. So for this example, I have a lead status that's special. It's order inquiry dash hot. That tells the sales rep You know they came from a web form, they're ready to buy, close the deal. In order to get the automation to do this and still be accommodating for multiple other processes and lead statuses in the system that you may or may not have, what I did was whenever a web order is submitted, which again is a custom object linked through a lookup field, not a master detail relationship, when a web order is submitted, I want those leads or those contacts to be updated to order inquiry hot as a status. So traditionally, that might have required a trigger, or that might have required a different marketing automation tool. If you're a bootstrap admin and you're low on budget and you need to take advantage of the systems that you have, using something like the declarative rollup summary app could very easily solve a major pain point and not require Apex development. It's got some secrets behind there. It's a managed package. You can read about it. So the way that I built this to effectively connect my web order to my lead status was by using the managed lookup rollup summary app. So this is available on GitHub. There's a link to it in my PowerPoint, so you can check it out. There's also a success community page. So I'm not going to cover hardly anything of what this true capability really is, because there's a lot of awesome things that you can do with this. You can do more than just rolling up numbers like my example in today's demo. You can roll up text fields, long text fields. So you can definitely take this and run with it. So without further ado, let's talk about it. All right. So every single process is a record in the declarative rollup summary. So this is a web order count record, and it sort of works, in my mind, like a different version of a workflow or a more powerful version of Process Builder. So you can really kind of use them together and make the system automate and hand off from process to process nicely. So by defining the lookup relationship of the object that you want to roll up to a parent, you set the values here and you use the API names. And you'll see it's very user-friendly. There's so much community engagement out there about making the app better that it's constantly getting better every time I use it. So it's very straightforward. If you've never used API names before, trust me, you'll be able to find examples on the success community to probably accomplish something similar to what you're doing. So I'm able to take my child object for this example, which is a web order form, and I'm able to roll up a value to the related lead. If I had contacts in the system, I could just clone this and create a contact version of the same process. So the relationship field is the lookup value. So how are these two objects connected? Tell me what lookup field connects them. You can also do some fancy stuff here with relationship criteria, and it's a SOCL query filter. So definitely look for examples on Success Community and on the GitHub website. There's tons of examples. And you can even use relationship criteria fields. So if it's a conditional update that needs to happen, you're still not out of luck. You're still able to reference those values and add criteria to when this automation happens, when the rollup occurs. So on the rollup details, this is really covering where are we collecting this information. So I have a lead custom field called web order count, which if I was doing this in a real org, this field would not be on the page layout. It would just be a system field. But the web order count, when it has a value, that will roll up to that custom field. Again, this could be a number field. This could be a text field. There's a lot that you can do with this. You can order the logic, and you also have a handful of roll-up operations that you can do. And so for this example, I just used a sum, so it's your traditional roll-up, but you've got your max, your min, average, count, count distinct, concatenate, concatenate distinct, first, last. And you can read up on all of those operations But you can really, really do a lot with this tool, and you can make updates happen in multiple calculations. So you have the ability to do real-time, scheduled, developer. You can even go so far as using process builder. It's awesome. And then it will also take into effect your sharing rules if you need it to. So what I did for the rollup in conjunction with the lead status was, and I'm sure there are many ways that you could do this to make it more streamlined, but for this example, I kept it simple, and I just used a workflow rule. And the workflow rule was really simple. That was whenever there's a value in web count order form, update the lead status to order inquiry hot on creation of the lead. Okay, so I know I covered a lot of connected ideas here. I want to pause for a moment and allow the room to ask questions and talk about this in different ways maybe you could use it.
Kelly, do you need for me to read the questions to you?
Yeah, that would be great.
Okay. All right. First one, related to FormAssembly, can you populate a form with fields from Salesforce using FormAssembly? If so, how easy is it to send values to FormAssembly forms? I think you went through that.
Yes, so you can use the lookup fields, and when you have a defined lookup field, the cool thing is you can reference those fields in the connector instructions after you've created the form. So if you know a value based on pre-populated data, you can pull it from the CRM through a formula.
Okay. There was a question about the email address. Where's his email address? I'm not quite sure about that one. Can you show the two web list view configs? Okay. Lori, if you have any additional questions on that, if you can post that to the chat, that'd be great. How would you compare this tool to rollup helper in terms of its capability?
So rollup helper, I believe, is a paid app, and it's very expensive from the last time that I was privy to the payment structure for it. And if you're using the free version, it's limited to just a few rollups, and you also have to press a button on the free version to even make the calculation run.
Oh.
I think that the declarative rollup summary is all that in a bag of chips, and it's free.
And there are constant updates to it. For instance, Andy just put out a recent release, so the declarative rollup summary is not just something that's sitting there. It is being updated.
Okay. What is the name of the
intimidated.
rollup app? All right. The next question is, what is the name of the rollup app?
It's the declarative rollup summaries app, and it's located. It looks a little scary. It's on a GitHub website. I'll pull it up really quick. So I would say, and this would be just very minimal feedback, and maybe this is a limitation of GitHub, but it's not the most user-friendly website. So if you're looking to install this, it's nowhere near the top of the page. You just scroll down, keep scrolling, keep scrolling. Okay, so see where it says packaged release history? From this section, there's the links to actually install it. So this is the only place that you install it from. These two special links on the GitHub website. So you've got your product URL, which will redirect you automatically if you're installing in production. So don't go there first. Go to the sandbox URL, and it'll install in your sandbox environment. And if you find a link that you think looks pretty to the App Exchange, it just redirects you back here. So come here and go there. I'll do a screencast of that just so.
Okay, great.
I've had to do that a few times.
Do you ever use multi-part forms via FormAssembly? Send the recipient a pre-filled form.
That's a really good question that I can't answer off the top of my head, but we can definitely come back to it unless there's someone on the panel that knows.
So, Bruce, if you're still out there, if you could post that to Salesforce Automation Hour, and we will follow up on that. All right. Are you able to show the related list filtering again?
Of course. And Doug's blog has a really good example of it too. But essentially, whatever object that you're looking to have these related list filters on, you go to that object, you use that object in your lookup custom field. So for my example, order status, I made a lookup field for every single status in my pick list. And then in Process Builder, I set the value when the value was true. I removed the value when the value was no longer true in the lookup field for that applicable status or order status to order status. And then you just continue on throughout your process. So it's always evaluating that order status and populating the lookup for your helper related list and unpopulating it when it no longer meets the criteria.
All right, next question. Can you create a new form with FormAssembly?
Sure. So this is the FormAssembly builder. And you can essentially just like add fields, and you can name the fields however you want. And you can format it, add pictures. You can also, like I said earlier, it's really good for usability. It's very straightforward. You can also just quickly add multi-select pick list values. And reorder them. Also, file upload. How cool is that? You can set passwords, hidden fields. So if you have information that you want to pass, maybe something like a tracking code, for example, that only relates to your internal process, you can also do that. It also has a lot of like native features. Can't tell you how many times I've had to like Google a pick list for the United States and then paste it into a pick list. So there's a lot of things in here that make it really awesome. Automatic section for payments. It's really, really easy to click and drop and build some really awesome things. Analytics, if you use Google Analytic tracking codes, this is huge, huge, connecting your Google Analytics to your forms. There's a lot of things they just did right with FormAssembly. I mean, just being able to accept payments and accept files and not have to engage with web developers, this really puts the power in the hands of the admins and the marketing admins.
Cool. Great. Next question. Show me the campaign page layout and the campaign web order lookup field definitions.
What was that question again? Sorry.
The request was to show the campaign page layout and the campaign web order lookup field definitions.
Okay. So these are just related lists. So in Lightning, you actually click the details tab, and that's like your in standard Salesforce. Those are your normal fields that you usually see at the top of the page anytime you look at a campaign. But then you have your related records. So your related records to campaigns are usually your hierarchy. So if you have multiple campaigns related, you can see them. But here's my campaign members. So this is being populated every time there's a FormAssembly Beyonce form filled out. And they're assigned to the campaign member for this campaign. And then we've got our lookups. So let me switch. It might take a minute. And I actually have, let me pull it up from Classic in a second. Sorry, I'm having a hard time finding it enlightening. I'll answer that one after the call just to save time.
Okay. All right. There's a question about the rollup tool. Is it able to roll up in some formula fields?
I believe it can reference other formulas on objects.
Okay.
So if you used a rollup in conjunction with existing formulas that you have on the page, you could have another report formula or an additional formula that does math that connects all of those data endpoints.
All right, and the next question, if you have experience with both, is FormAssembly similar to Qualtrics?
I have not used the other tool that was referenced.
Okay. So, Olga, if you could post that out on the Salesforce Automation Hour, and maybe someone has experience with that.
Yes.
Right. The next question is, how is CC payment processing handled? And don't you need to enable encrypted fields in Salesforce when and if receiving CC forms?
So FormAssembly can be used as a standalone tool. So I think traditionally it was used for resumes and medical web forms, things like that, where there was a higher level of encryption needed. So it very quickly rose to the industry standards. And from a Salesforce perspective, if you're passing that data to Salesforce, then you would need, and I recommend using encrypted fields to capture that payment information if you house that data in Salesforce. But it could be a standalone and just live in FormAssembly.
All right. It looks like I've gone through all the, oh, there's another question that just popped up. Can you include a web form in an email sent from a Salesforce record, such as a contact, and have it pull the contact ID into the form as a hidden field to be used later? Let me know if you need me to reread that.
I know what they mean, and I haven't tried the reverse logic with FormAssembly, but I'm sure it can be done because the connector is extremely powerful. But I'll follow back up with you after I test for that.
Okay. All right. Does anyone else have any questions? Because it seems like I've gone through the list. I have 8 minutes left. Or if anyone has a general process automation question you'd like to ask. All right, I'm not seeing anything else come in.
All right. Well, thank you so much. Really appreciate the opportunity to present, and hopefully, we can make some new friends on the success community. Great questions today.
Great. Thank you, Melissa. Thank you, Taylor.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone, and join us for our next Automation Hour session, and that will be on December 9th. Wow, December. All right, we'll see you then. Bye.